in so that they could use these 105 howitzers as mortars. And Lieutenant Luce sent the word down, says, we need some artillery. And they came back and says, the location you're giving us is you. And he told them, yes, it is, and we're not alone, and if you don't get some support up here, we're not going to be here alone. So they started back, I don't know how far from our line, 100 yards maybe, or a little distance, and they were stepping, they'd fire around and then step it up again. And they stepped the artillery up to where Archibald was in his hole, and one shell hit beside it and knocked a rock over on him, and they had to dig him out, sort of. So that's when Lieutenant Luce told him, that's close enough. But his movement, him moving us around and outthinking the Germans kept us alive. He was thinking ahead all the way. And well, even during training, his motto was make every shot count. Don't just shoot, make every shot count. And we heard that from several times. Not then, because we knew then we needed to make every shot count. But it would just shoot at each other's rifle flashes and throw a grenade if you had one. Peabody had stretched a wire. I don't know, he didn't know why. He said he put a wire across the sort of in front of his hole, and he heard the wire jar, and a grenade bounced off of the wire out of the hole. Fairweather threw one grenade out of his lap back. These are German grenades, what we call potato mashers. They were about 15 inches long with a handle on them, looked like a little club. But they were rather deadly if you happened to be close to one. So after we went down off of, after this, it was just sort of, the line was fairly static. After it was set up, the line became fairly static, and we'd make short pushes to get about. We complained because we'd push and get about as we'd just get far enough to be where we'd be taking their first artillery, and then they'd tell us to stop. And we weren't. But anyway, I guess the commanders wanted the line more or less straightened out. So it was just a series of short pushes, and I got on one of those. We were sitting there where we would get on a hill, and we'd be going the forward slope of it at night, and then come back on the backside in daytime. And my buddy and I were sitting. They were using Germans were using white phosphorus as well as regular artillery. And so we had a little shelter, had a hole over the center of the hole, a roof, and a hole in each end. And they were firing at us. Well, we'd get fire off and on all day, but around noon they always wanted to interrupt your K ration. So my buddy and I were sitting. I was in one end of the hole, and he was in the other. And we were eating, and about that time a mortar shell hit just right almost on top of us. And I got a load of shrapnel in the head and shoulder, and he had his mouth open, and a bigger piece came in and came in his cheek, knocked out a tooth, and came out his mouth. So we went back to the hospital a few days, and then back up front. And when we went back up, we were again in a similar position, with forward in the daytime and back at night. And I had a new foxhole buddy now, so we were sitting there eating one day, and we knew they were going to shell eventually. Usually you could hear them coming. The 88, if you hear an 88, you're all right, because it goes off and you're safe. But these other shells coming in, you could tell when the whistle. So we were sitting there we just had one hole open on this foxhole, and I was sitting with tail on the side of the hole and my feet down. He sort of had his head and shoulders out of the hole. And so we made an agreement that when we heard the shell coming, why, he would duck his head down, and then I'd go down. Well, the shell came, and I forgot the instructions. And I jammed his head on the side of the hole, but thank goodness the shell went off far enough from us that wasn't any problem. So then in the first part of April, when the big push, when the campaign was set to go across the Po Valley and go on all the way on up into the Brenner Pass. And all the outfits pushed. They were supposed to push through on the ends where there was some flat land so they could get some support artillery and tanks and what have you. And ours, we were there where we weren't supposed. We were just there, and they finally says, "Well, you all put pressure too. We get pressure on the whole line." Well, we broke through, and we were the first ones to come out of the hills, literally, and go into the Po Valley. And from there, it was just scattered opposition. It was just a rat race going across the valley.